Hi, my name is Korp, and in today's video I'm going to show you how easy it is to draw this character. It'll take about an hour for us to draw, but don't worry, everything's going to be step by step, so it's going to be nice and easy to follow. So let's start off with the colours that we're going to be using. So if you haven't got the same colours as me, don't worry about it, just use any alternative colours that you can find. The more colourful, the better with this character. I'm going to encourage you to draw these lines to go straight in with a pen. We're not going to go in with any pencil marks, because with when you're using a pencil, what you tend to be thinking is, I can always erase this, I can rub it out, it's not a big deal. Whereas what I want you to get used to doing is thinking, right, I'm going to do this with a pen, so I've got to get it right first time. If I don't get it right first time, I've got to make it work somehow. So it's always a good way of making sure that you're always moving forwards with your art, rather than just going backwards and forwards with the pencil lines. So grab your light green. We're going to start off with the light green. We're just going to throw in some little outlines just to help us with where everything's going to live. So now imagine we've got those feet across the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up a little bit more than that, and in the middle we're going to draw a nice U shape. So I think starting about here, nice U shape to get us started off. Now look at the centre of that U shape and work your way up, and then up here give it a bit of a gap there. Maybe up here let's go and put in some sort of circular shape for an eye right in the middle there. Then now the next eye, we're going to use this edge of the U shape as a bit of a guide of where to put this eye, so make sure it doesn't come out too much further than that. So maybe from about there to there. And again, don't worry about getting perfect circles. Wonky circles for the eyes work just as well. Next bit we're going to do is going to work on the mouth and the head. So kind of take yourself a line that kind of goes from around about over here, and leave a little bit of a gap under the eyes over here, just past the edge of that eye. Maybe come out that far. That's for the top lip there. Then the other line is going to start, it's going to kind of come from where this curve starts. So it's going to join up in here and it's going to hit the head, but we want to make it a little bit more of an L shape. So let me show you what I mean by that. So we're going to go there, then hit the top of that eye. See, that's quite close to the top of the eye. Then what we can do is, as we go across, we just bring that line down a little bit. It's going through that eye as well. And then again, think more of an L shape. So it goes out like that and then down. So it's got a little bit of a bend right in the middle of that line. That'll do, quite like that shape, that's going okay. So let's put the bottom part of the mouth in. So this is where you can think about how big you want to draw that mouth. We've got some bouncy teeth and a tongue to put in, so we're going to go quite big. So bring that line down a bit and then go across. And then remember, we've got that little bottom lip in there. We'll draw tongue in later, but for the time being, let's go and work down here on the toes. This is the most complicated bit. If you get this right, you're cooking. Start over this side. We'll work on this side, we'll work our way across. We're going to put the front feet in first, starting with the front legs. Now, as you come in here, you don't want to go too far down. Don't want to make these legs too long. Stumpy legs are pretty cool. But you want to be able to leave enough space, so make sure you've got them about the same height above the bottom of the page. You want to leave enough space that we've got enough space for some toes. So we'll concentrate on the 4 big toes that you can see first. So let's put in 1 there. I'm going to squeeze 2 in this gap. 1 there. 1 there. So like I said, concentrating on those big toes first. Then what we do with these front legs is we're going to put 2 more little toes coming off the back there. Little step up. Can you see how it just starts a little bit further up? Smaller toe as well. Let's join those up. So at the bottom, we're just going to join them up with a line. Leave that gap in between. Don't do that line there. Join them up with a line, and then a little U shape in there. Oops. So we've got our front feet in. Next we're going to work on our back feet. A little bit more complicated with the back feet because you're only going to see certain parts of those back feet. So let's start off with the toes. I think it's easier to put the toes in and then work the leg into the body based on where the toes are. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a big toe. Now up here we're going to come up again, so it's going to step up a little bit. And we're going to chuck in a fairly big toe. Same size as this one, look. A fairly big toe, and then chuck in a little toe on the end there. Now you can see where this toe is and where the leg starts, how much of a gap there is. So imagine the same kind of thing. This is a big toe here. The gap is going to probably come out about here. This is where the leg's going to come out. So let's put a line up there and then that way for the leg. Do the inside of the leg, which will probably be about there. Let's do the same on the other side. So again, with a big toe first, then the little toe, and then again think about where that leg's going to come out from. So it's going to start around about here. Put a little knee in it. I reckon about there should do nicely. And again, don't worry if those legs are looking a little bit wonky at the moment. We can always fix it a little bit later. It's the beauty of Posca pens. You can always just keep on going over the top until you get it just right. Okay, last part. Last part is to add that tail. The tail is a lot of fun because it's a great big tail. It's going to go all the way around the top. So you kind of want to start at this back leg, and we're going to zigzag out up there, and then we're just going to do some wonky lines that end up just above this eye over here. So let's go for it. Starting off that back leg, zigzag out, maybe go across there, and then we're going to end up just above the eye there. Now what you've got to remember is this part of the tail is going to be fat and this part of the tail is going to be fat. This bit over here is going to be a little bit thinner. So let's make it fat first. So watch this. We're going to come in there. And then make it fat again as it joins the back. And again, you can change some of those shapes if you need to a little bit later. Okay. We're going to add some shadow lines now. So grab your darker green pen or the darker colour that you're going to use. We're going to add a few little shadow lines in, and we're going to colour in those shadows whilst we're at it as well. So the first shadow line is going to be across the back here. So it's going to come off the back of the tail. It's going to come off the back of the tail, just hit the side of the head there. So imagining the lights coming in from this direction, so all the shading and the shadows are going to come in from this direction. So one more line starting from the behind the eye, this little corner here behind the eye, just go across the head. Let's follow that down, round a bit. Join into that leg. Then as we get into that leg, we want to just go round that bit like that. So there are our main shadow lines. Now what we can do with the rest of it is we're just going to go around the whole border. And then we can colour in that whole thing in the dark green. So around the whole border like this. See, as we're just going around all these toes. Any little tweaks you need to make to the shapes, now's the time to make them. Now don't forget that little bit in there is going to be left blank. So make sure that we leave that little bit blank underneath the back leg there. Last line is just join that up to the head like that. And then all this section, let's go and quickly colour in all this section. Now don't worry if your colouring in is looking a little bit streaky. There's two reasons why that happens. One is you perhaps haven't shaken your pen enough to mix the paint up enough. You haven't primed it enough to get the paint, the nice shaken up paint coming out properly. There is that. The other method of kind of getting the streakiness away is what I prefer, which is just giving it another coat. So as soon as your painting's dry, as soon as your picture's dry, we'll just give it another coat of paint, and that'll sort that out. That streakiness will just disappear. Okay, let's move quick now. So we're going to put another shadow. This next shadow, we're going to put it right at the top so that we don't smudge anything as we work our way down. So starting off the back of the tail, this point here, we're going to come into the middle of the tail, like that. Then go around the outside. And we've got ourselves a border to colour in again. So I find with colouring in, do it section by section. Try not to scribble it in randomly. Sometimes I advise that technique, but for this one, especially working on this type of paper, let's colour it in section by section. Let's go and throw in some bags under the eyes. So you want a big U shape under the eye. Start with, then another U shape. Just adding a little bag that we can colour in. Same on the other side. Big U shape, another big U shape, colour in the bag. Let's move down now. We've just got a few more shadows that we're going to add in around this area. First one, you see this leg? We've got this leg, this back leg. We're just going to push that line up from the back leg. Sorry, the front leg, isn't it? We're going to push that line up from the front leg a little bit higher up into the belly, and then we're going to have this like little line that goes across, that just slowly blends in to the belly there. So a little tiny shadow on the belly. Then we're going to take this toe over here. This toe's going to all be dark green. Up to there. Remember how we curved it around there? Let's curve that around again. So just curve it around. Bring it up until you hit the belly part and colour that in. One last bit around here, back of the leg there. Just a little tiny shadow down the bottom part of that leg. That's good. Keep that handy because we will be adding some more shadows in a little bit later and some more patterns and things. But you can already start to see how it's starting to create a little bit of a shape, a little bit of depth to it by having that shadow in there. So what we'll do now is let's go and colour in that tail at the top. Colour in all of this, the rest of our character in. So I'm going to start up here in the top left so I can work my way down and across so that I don't smudge anything. So feel free, start wherever you want to start. My advice is always to outline the section first that you want to colour in and then go colouring in section at a time. Now what you will find is that these Artgecko pads are really good at holding the paint on the top, so they're not very absorbent. The paint just sits on the top nicely, just clings to the paper. So what you will need to do every now and then is just make sure you're pressing your nib down because you're going to use a lot of paint. So always have a little scrap bit of paper handy or scrap bit of card, just somewhere where you can push that nib down. Make sure you've got enough paint coming through. You want to get to a fine balance between pushing it down every now and then so that you've got enough paint coming through all the time. Not too much so that it becomes too wet, but don't leave it too long so that it becomes too dry. And don't forget, with your artwork you can give it another coat later. So if it's coming through streaky or if there's some bits that don't look quite right, don't try and colour them in again. Just leave them to dry and then go back to it later to finish it off. One of the tricky things with Posca pens is if the paint is kind of half dry, you don't want to be colouring over the top of it, because what happens then is that your nib kind of picks up that half dry paint, and so not only does that block your nib, it also scrapes the paint off your paper, and it all becomes a little bit frustrating. So yeah, anytime you see little mistakes like that, or you want to go back and colour something in, wait for it to dry and go back a bit later. Okay, let's move down. Let's do some more of the rest of the body. We've got time. I'm going to outline these bits. Hopefully everything should be dry by now. So all the way down there to the foot. And then we can colour in all of that section as well. So down into the leg, into that toe. It's a light coloured toe at the moment, but I think we might turn that into a dark toe later, we'll see. Now that bit, like that leg where it comes up, just make sure that chops off that dark shadow, like that. Okay, leave this bit because we're going to come back to that bit. We're going to draw a tongue in a sec. Let's just go and do around the top of the eyes. There we go. So what we're going to do around here, remember we've got that tongue sticking out. So let's just make it really simple for ourselves. Let's just do a big old D shape coming down there, as big as you want, however big you want that tongue to be. Maybe it's sticking out about that much. Just a bit of a guide, just so that we're not colouring in too much. We don't want to waste our time colouring that bit in if all we're going to do is just colour over it again with pink later. There we go, all the way into that bottom lip. Down here into the leg. Got lots of toes to colour in on this side. Remembering to leave that little gap there, don't go over that little gap. Under the leg there. It's not a problem if you do go over that gap. All you've got to do is put a different colour in the background. So if you do go over that little gap with the green, leave it. Later on, maybe do a little blue in there and do a little bit more blue coming out the sides here, just so it looks like the whole background is meant to be that colour. Last little section. What we'll do actually, we'll help ourselves out here. We're going to use the black pen. Just going to do a bouncy line for the teeth, and then we know how far up these green bits have got to go. So maybe starting at the back of the mouth here, let's start doing some teeth. And then what we can do from about there, we just want a little curve that goes around like that, just so that we can separate the inner mouth, which is that bit, from the outer mouth, which is over here. See how close? So big. Don't forget that black line that we've just drawn is going to be a little bit wet, so get as close as you can without really touching it. Okay, looking good. So the next thing we're going to do is just add in that tongue there. Remember we left that little D shape in the middle of the chin there just to give us a bit of space to add in a tongue. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a line. It's going to come just a bit further back. So just back here in the mouth. We're going to start from there and we're going to just do a little jump. The jump is going to go all the way over the top and land right in the center of that D shape. So like this, all the way over and land right in the center of the D shape. Because then what we're going to do is we're going to take another line. It's going to start from about here. Another jump. This time it's going to go all the way around that D shape and back into the mouth again. So just from there, all the way around the D shape, back into the mouth again. Join that bit up at the back and then we can colour the whole thing in. Now hopefully it'll make your green line across the mouth. Hopefully it'll make that disappear. If it doesn't, we can go over that with a bit more pink a little bit later. Great stuff. So let's go and add in one little shadow just on the inside of the mouth there. Just a bit that goes across like that. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our white. I want us to add in, so even though we're working on white paper, and it seems a bit pointless to put white paint on white paper because you're hardly going to see it. For me though, it's the difference between the coverage of the paint. So you're going to be able to see a slightly different kind of texture on the eyes and the teeth than you can for the background. So it's going to look like it's meant to be there. So grab your white pen. Let's go and start with those eyes. We're just going to colour in those eyes. We're going to take out, see that green line we've got around the top? See if we can take a little bit of that out as well as we're colouring in. So starting around about there. See how we're going over that line? It's disappearing slightly. It doesn't have to disappear completely, but if we can get rid of it a little bit, that'll be good. Colour in the rest. And white's a great one that you might have to just give a couple of coats to because it does tend to be a bit transparent if you haven't set it up right. Now don't work over those greens too much because what will happen is because we haven't left this very long to dry, it will start picking up some of that green and start blending it in. And the type of artwork we're doing today, there's not much blending in. There's no blending in. We're just doing flat colours on there. So once you've done the eyes, let's go in and do the teeth. Now be careful, that bit there is still going to be quite wet, so try not to touch that, but we're just going to go over. Put a little bit of white in those teeth. Now at this point, if you have got any kind of green bits that kind of sticking over into the teeth that you want to get rid of, now's your opportunity. If you want to change the shape of these teeth, now's your opportunity as we're putting in this white pen over the top. And don't forget, the white might not cover the colour underneath perfectly. You might have to give it another coat a little bit later, so just wait for that if you need to give it another coat. Okay, so what we're going to do next, we're just going to quickly work into that tongue again. Add a little bit of shading into that tongue, because it's all about adding loads of colour and shading first. Then we're going to add a black outline, and then we'll add the extra details afterwards. Have a bit of fun with it right at the end. But for the time being, let's go and carry on with this, just throwing on different layers of colour. Let's make this tongue a little, give it a little bit more kind of depth. It looks a bit flat at the moment. So what we'll do is down the bottom here, we're going to take a little curve out from there all the way around to about there. Then we're going to join those two tips up again, the end of those lines up again, except this time we're just going to come into the tongue a little bit more, like that. So we've got this like moon shape. Then we can colour that in. Now if your tongue isn't dry, just wave your canvas around, blow on it, get a hairdryer, whatever you need to do to get it dry, but don't be going over the pens, don't be going over with the red wine. on top of the pink until it's properly dry. Right, second shadow we're going to add in. Remember that line that we did there that went into the middle of the tongue? We're just going to pick it up from here, but we're going to continue it into the middle of the tongue again. And then it's going to come back up again with a little V shape. And colour that in. So we can start seeing a little bit of shape there in the tongue as well. Let's go and add in some, so I'm adding orange into the eyes. Not that orange. I'm going to add this orange into the eyes for the iris. Now, I like doing the eyes last on any characters I do because I like to have the eyes looking in a certain direction. So something might happen, I might make a mistake or smudge something, and I might have to draw like a fly or something on top of the smudge to make the smudge disappear. So if that happens, I usually have the eyes looking at that fly, so it all looks intentional. So have a little think about which way you want your character to be looking. It can have crazy eyes, you can have one looking one area and one looking in another area. It can be looking up at the tail, it can be looking down at the tongue, or it can be looking straight forward with some eyes right in the centre there. I'm going to have mine looking up at the tail though, so right at the top here, the eye, just give it a little bit of space, right at the top. I'm just going to draw a donut. Something like that will do. Oh, in fact, let's just colour the whole thing in. Colour the whole thing in, because we can put a black pupil over the top and a white reflection over the top of that later as well. Okay, ready? Let's go and put in a little shadow. So one of the things I always like to do as well is put little tiny shadows above on the top of the teeth. Just makes those teeth look like they're inside the mouth a little bit more. So all we're going to do is across there. There's a little shadow. I'm going to use a bigger pen actually. So we're just drawing a line all the way across that top lip. That would just give our teeth a little bit of shadow on the teeth, make them look a little bit more like they're inside the mouth of our character. Okay, so I think we're good to do some outlining now. So we're going to throw in some outlines around our whole character. Make sure it's all nice and dry before you do that. Give it a little wave it around, blow on it, get the hair dryer out, whatever you need to do to get it dry. Now when we come to outlining, it's important, I think, not to get too hung up about getting perfectly smooth outlines. A wonky outline will look just as good as long as we make it wonky all over the place. So that's the target. That's what we're going to aim for today, is a nice wonky outline. So I think we're going to be better off starting down in the feet and working our way up. Just because these feet are quite complicated, so let's get that more difficult bit where we have to think. Let's get that one out of the way first. So we'll start off with this leg here. This is the leg that is the furthest forward out of all four legs. So obviously you can see that toe there, and you can just about see the shapes for that toe there. So let's go and try and add in those shapes for that toe. So it's kind of coming from round about there, all the way around. And then as we come back up the leg, just flick the pen off. See how it just overlaps there? Just flick the pen off a little bit. Let's bring it around this way. Around the other toe. Up into the leg. Again, little tiny flick. Nothing too close to that tongue. You don't want to get too close to it. but a little tiny flick. Now these end points, we're going to keep them as thin as possible, but the rest of the line we're going to make wonky, and we're going to do that by double lining. Now, double lining isn't about making the line twice as thick, it's about making it twice as wonky. So let's go in. And make our line nice and wonky. So you see we've got some thick bits in there and we've got some thin bits. And if we go with that technique all the way through, it's going to really hold our artwork together. Okay, let's move across. We're going to go and do this leg next, but we're going to do this belly first. So right underneath here, all the way across. As you get to that point, keep going, a little flick. So keep that line going. Little flick. Don't forget to double line it, make it a wonky line. Especially as it's underneath the body. With these lines underneath the body, you can go quite thick with them because that's where all the shadows live. And then let's go around these two toes. Nice and easy. Coming up this side, take it up that far, and then we'll do that bit a little bit later. Let's go and double line that. Remember that double lining is all about making it a wonky line. Something like that. Next thing I think we should do is add those little toes in. So still working on those front feet. Remember how we little toe in there. Little toe over this side. And you can see how adding those steps that we did earlier, those little stepped toes, is really helping us identify where these toes live. Let's work on, what should we do? Should we go work in the mouth, or should we do the back legs? Let's leave these back legs for the time being, because I want these lines to dry before we start going all over the back of them as well. So let's go and work in the mouth. And what we'll do is we'll quickly outline this tongue. So the first line, coming from the back of the tongue there, all the way over, underneath the shadow, and a little flick. Really important, that little flick. Next line, we're going to start here, all the way around this tongue, underneath the tongue, and then as we come back to the top again, little tiniest of flicks into the tongue. See how it just overlaps a little bit, just a tiny bit into there. Now we can go and double line that. Add some wonkiness. Don't worry about up top here adding wonkiness to that bit, because all of this in the inner mouth is going to be black in a second. So that's all going to disappear anyway. Okay, back of the mouth. Let's start right up here in the corner. I'm going to bring a line down. Tuck it in behind the tongue there. Double line that. Across the front. Double line that, and then that flick down. That'll do. Let's go and do the top lip now. So again, be really, really careful about where you position your hands so that you don't smudge anything. We're going to go all the way across that top lip. Double line that as well. And let's just, yeah, we'll leave it there and we'll go and work on the teeth. So we're going to outline those teeth. We're going to double line those teeth. They're already in there. So we just got to give them a bit more of an outline. Then we can colour in the mouth black. So let's bounce around those teeth. Now I wouldn't go all the way up to the black line. I'd leave a little bit of a gap. Like so. And then this back part of the lip, see that dark shadow, remember we added that in? Let's go and give that line one single line, and then this bit can be double lined. So a nice thick wonky line that side. And then all of this bit in here, we're going to just colour that in black. Great stuff. So let's leave that bit to dry now. We'll work on the eyes in a second, but we'll leave that mouth to dry. And let's go back down here to the legs. Start working on those. So first of all, these two toes out the back here, they look like really easy toes to just draw around. So we're just going to outline those. Nothing particularly complicated there. Double line it. Let's do the same on this side. Just sometimes it's just nice to get the easy bits out of the way with. Which leg should we do first? Let's go and do this leg. Again, working on from the left hand side, working across to the right. So with the back leg, just go up into the butt area and then just a little flick off. Leave it like that. Double line it. Down here. Another little double line there. And then we can go and move on to the leg on the other side. Okay, let's get back on with those eyes next. So we're just going to outline the white part of the eye first. Again, double line around it, nice and quick. Don't forget the whole point of double lining is to make a wonky line. So if your lines come out quite wonky like mine has, that's excellent. That's exactly what you want. Let's do the other side. Just realised how much these eyes look like fried eggs at the moment. Double line it again. Nice wonky lines. Let's go around the bags as well. So those green bags, what we're just going to do is just going to flick the line down a little bit, following the line of those green bags. So coming from the side of the eye, give it a little flick into there. Same on both sides. If you want to add a couple of little dots and dashes in just under that eye, you can do. Look. See what a difference it makes, just kind of giving a suggestion of a crease there without there being a definite black line in there. Okay, let's go and change these eggs up. Now, if you wanted to keep them as fried eggs, you can keep them as fried eggs. I'm going to put some pupils in there. So right in the centre. Let's put some black dots. And again, you've got to be careful here because the lines that we're drawing are all going to be wet still. So just be careful as you're reaching across your canvas. So next one we're going to do is just do the back of the head, and then we're going to work around the tail. So let's start over here. This is the easiest place to start. Starting there, off the back, follow that green line, and then a flick down. A bit of double lining is good. Little dash line if you want to. That line goes behind the eyes, joins up the eyes that side, and then again around this side just to join up the mouth there. Great stuff. Now let's whip around that tail. So I'm going to start on the back here. I'm going to start there, and I'm going to work way down to the leg. So we're just going around the outside. Double line that. Move up into the top of the tail. Don't forget, move your canvas around if you can't reach. Don't feel like you have to keep it in one central position. Do whatever you need to do to reach all those hard to reach parts. So we've got the outside of that tail done. Let's go and do the inside now. We're going to add a few little flicks as we do the inside. So let's start with this flick. I'm going to start down here, follow it up, and then when you get to that dark green bit, just flick into the tail like that. Do that again. Follow that bit. Flick into the tail. One more time. To finish off. Double line. There we go. One last little bit to add in is this little line here that we've got. Let's go and finish that line up, joining into those teeth like that. There we go. That's most of the detailed pieces of our character done. So what we're going to do now is just start having a little bit more fun with the character. Okay, so this is where we kind of add little patterns and textures and stuff like that. So join in with me. I'm going to go for the darker colour. So you remember the colour that we used for the shadow, this dark green around the back here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to help myself by putting some nostrils in. So just two little circles right there. And we're going to come back to those a little bit later and go over them with a light green in order to change the shape a little bit. So they're not just two holes or two donuts, but they're actually two little creases. So that's the only part to do. The next bit we're going to do is just going to go over all of these light green areas, and we're going to add some spots and dots and things like that. So just take it from wherever you want. Add some big spots. So I find it's always best to do these things in 2s or 3s. Nearly always starting off with a bigger one, then a smaller one, then a smaller one. But we're just going to go everywhere you can. Everywhere there's a little gap, maybe some little small ones around here for freckles. Moving down into the body, let's just throw in wherever you want. Don't think about it too much, just chuck them in. If there's a bit of body that's looking a little bit plain, a little bit boring, then let's just go and chuck in some spots. So they were coloured in spots. Let's go and put in some now, just normal little dots. So anywhere you like, don't think about it too much. Try not to do them spaced out evenly. You want to leave gaps. Do like 2 together. That's the kind of effect that you want. Keeps it looking nice and random if you do that. Then go and grab your light green. We're going to do exactly the same with the light green. This time we're going to work on the dark green area. So again, put some big spots in, followed by some little ones. Any way you want, don't think about it, just chuck them in. Once you've got that in, we can go in and do some smaller spots. Any way you like. Just make your character look a little bit more interesting. Now remember I said that we're going to change the shape of those nose holes, so let's go and change the shape of those nose holes. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a light green circle inside that dark green donut that we've just drawn. But we're just going to move it over to one side a little bit. So watch this, just there. What we'll do is we'll just draw a little circle there, same on the other side. And you see how that just changes that shape from being a donut to now being a bit more of a little crease. It looks like it could be a gecko nose. Okay, looking good. Let's go and finish off those eyes. Remember how we had those eyes? We're going to put a little tiny white reflection in there. So if it's dry, this is where you want to put in a white reflection. So maybe a dot. A little dot there. Big dot, little dot. Something like that would do nice. Anything else you want to add in? Now's your time to add it in. What about, let's add in some little eyebrows actually. That would look really cool. We've got a bit of time. So this is again a nice way of how you can add things over the top of what you've already drawn. So what we're going to do, let's start off with a little kind of D shape just there for one eyebrow, and then the other eyebrow just there. Colour that in. We're going to leave that to dry. We'll come back to that in a few seconds. While that's drying, what we can do is the same way as we did all those spots, those green spots, we can do that with the pinks and the red. Let's go and put some little spots on the tongue. So pink spots in the red, red spots in the pink, that kind of thing, just to give our tongue a little bit more texture. Nothing complicated. Hopefully those eyebrows are dry. So let's go and add in a little shadow for those eyebrows. So I reckon around about there we've got a shadow. And around about there, the bottom of that one, we've got a shadow. So again, we'll leave that to dry. Now this is where you might want to take some of those shapes and put something in the background just to give you something else to look at. So maybe the colour from the tongue, bring some little spots on the outside, that kind of thing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little tiny shadow. Would do if my pen worked. Just going to add a little tiny shadow. Just joins up these toes, just so that it all looks dark under there. Maybe a couple of little black spots. There we go, just finished that bit off quite nicely. Hopefully that dark green up top now is nice and dry, so we can just quickly outline those eyebrows. Don't forget to double line it. You can see how we've gone over the tail there. Again, that's the beauty of these Posca pens. This type of paper is that you can do stuff like that. You can just start putting extra bits all over the top. So if you wanted to give this character 3 eyes, you could put another eye in there. Just colour it in over the top. If you wanted to put another tongue in coming out, you could do that. Anything you wanted, you can put on top. So there you go. I think we are just about done. Is there any other little details we want to add in? Let's maybe just chop off some of these lines. So it's just a case of now having a little bit of fun with your artwork, just tidying up little bits here and there where lines aren't thick enough, or if you want to colour stuff in again, that kind of thing. Might just give that white a little bit more of a go on the eyes, just to make it really shine. And there we go. I think that's done. So how did you get on? If you post anything online, be sure to use one of these tags down below so we can find your artwork nice and easily. Hope you enjoyed that session. I'll see you in the next video.